Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday night. Let me go ahead and invite Sanella in. There we go. Let's see if she can join us tonight. We're going to be talking about, there she is. Welcome.
Hello, how are you
Hello.
doing?
Good. I was just about to announce our topic for tonight. So welcome to another edition of Unpolished Podcast with Grounded Parents Group. And Sanella and I tonight are going to be talking about resilience, which is our theme for the month, and specifically talking about sort of everyday resilience. What does it look like? Because I was thinking about it today, and we were posting, on social media, different places, and we've been hearing the word a lot. I mean, it's a good thing to have, right? But we've been hearing a lot about resilience this year. I mean, for the past 2 years, right? We've got to be resilient. Oh, kids are resilient. We need to be more resilient. We have to build resilience. We have to gain resilience. And so I'm like, okay, that all sounds very clear and like a very, very good idea, except that suddenly when this month hit and we're going to do this topic of resilience, I started thinking, wait a minute, what is resilience? Is it what you do before there's a problem? Is it what you do when there's a problem? Is it what you do after there's a problem? Is it all of it? Is it none of it? So yeah, tell us a little bit about why you wanted to dig into this topic. And then I'm going to start us out with a definition, because anytime I don't understand something, that's where I start with the dictionary.
Absolutely. Well, I just see a couple of people join us, so welcome. I see Anne there. Hello. It's something that why this month? It's funny, so we decided to do it, and then I feel that the whole January required a lot of resilience from me and the entire family. So one of those things, and I think as something, it is a skill set that I have completely changed my perspective on, probably in the last 5-6 years. And then as my kids, I've got 10 and 14-year-old, I feel that they require so much more of that training as they're growing up, or I'm called to show up to resource myself and be resilient to kind of watch all of that, but also to teach. So yeah, I think it's essential. Getting up is everything. That's what allows us to fall, isn't it?
Yeah. That's so true. It's what allows us to fall. Yeah, when we know how to get up, when we know how to get up, we're willing to fall. I think, the past 2 years of this pandemic have really challenged us. And as you said, and you pointed it out on our last live last week when we were talking to Nancy, and you were talking about, okay, she was going through a divorce, and that's where she learned how to build her resilience. And we were wondering, like, well, how was it when you as a parent need to be resilient and your children are going through something also at the same time? It's not like we are individually just going through something that we need to build resilience around. We are collectively, as a family, as a parent-child unit, as a world, right? So kind of collectively needing to build this resilience. So that's why this topic is so critical. And I think, as we're coming into, we rounded 2022 and we're all like, and the next variant comes and we're still in this and we're still doing this.
21 and we are in 22.
What did I say?
We rounded up 2022. I do feel like it,
2022. This is the year we're in, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
go on.
Okay, I don't know, you had me very worried there, but I'm sure I said the wrong year. Okay. So, okay, as I said, when I want to know something, I start with a definition. Like tell me what the dictionary says, and then I kind of start from there. I'm like, does that feel right to me? Does that resonate with what my lived experience is?
Yes, absolutely.
right?
Okay.
So
So,
when I looked up the definition, right? So the first definition is the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape, like
okay.
elasticity, right? So
Mm.
even when you look at the Chinese character for resilience, it has it has like an elastic element to it. And you kind of picture a rubber band or something you could like stretch totally out of shape, definitely bend it to your will, right? And then when you let go, it goes boop,
Back to.
back to the shape it was. And so,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
think this is where we started to deviate
This
from
is
this
where I
definition.
immediately
Like,
have a problem.
okay, herein lies the problem. First, in that humans are not objects, right? So
Yep.
we don't just, stretch and bounce back into shape. And then there's another definition that talks more about one's capacity. So more from a human perspective, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. And recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. And you're cringing too. And are you cringing at the same word as me? What's the word you're cringing at?
Quickly.
Yeah. Why? Tell me. Dig into why these aren't working.
Okay. So capacity. I like that there is that word. So capacity. Because I think resilience is a capacity that we develop and nurture and all of that, and we can talk about that. But I do not like any prefixes that actually qualify the experience, which is unique to us. So quickly implies that if I, and let's talk about the big stuff, like we talked to Nancy. So let's talk about divorce or illness or a business fails or, anything. Or your child struggles and then you have this expectation to do it quickly, to do it in a certain amount of time. And then if you find yourself that you are not doing it quickly, then you think, what's wrong with me? And I think that is immediately what I don't like about it.
Yeah. And I'm picking up on the same word. And I think for me, it's also, I would add on that if you do it quickly, if you do manage to do it quickly, and I think there's some credibility that our society gives to people who get back up on their feet very quickly, right? As if it's just, a road race, right? You got knocked down, you tripped, you kind of, the faster you can, jump back up and still get over the finish line, it's rewarded. And I think that even if you were to do that with exactly those life experiences that you just named, for sure, you are missing an opportunity to actually build true resilience. Right?
Love that.
There was an article that I once read about resilience, and it talked about 3 aspects of resilience. Talked about adaptability, which I quite like, right? Because that's somehow like adaptability means that there is some change, that there's some adjustment that happens to your being as a result of this setback or disappointment or fall down moment. Then there was persistence, which kind of strikes me more like the road race, like just push on, push, like to be persistent in face of adversity. It's almost like don't let it stop you, don't let it slow you down, just keep on, applying pressure through that. And I worry about that sort of an approach. And the third one was well-being, which you hear a lot about. You do hear people saying, like, as a part of resilience, self-care practices. There's sleeping, there's eating, there's making sure you get good exercise. And it is all very important to being able to manage well through times of difficulty. But I'm not sure that, a bowl of almonds and a bubble bath are really going to get to the nub of the issue when, we're in a global pandemic or we're going through a divorce or whatever, people are going through. So build that out for us. Build out the adaptability part, and the part that I think you and I have started to shift around? You said you've kind of reframed it over the last 5 to 6 years. So
Yeah.
what's been the shift for you?
I think for me, that adaptability piece is kind of central in the resilience practice that I teach and the resilience practice that I practice. So I think adaptability, because the adaptability implies to me the moment to moment dealing with what life sends us. So in the ability to notice, I think that's something that we miss, that just even to notice that we are down, that we are, because as you touched on that, we are conditioned to kind of we are not quite right, or we are struggling, and the idea is that the perseverance or persistence needs to look certain way, and that is you already talk about that it looks like nothing's happening here. How are you? I'm fine. Exactly. So that we then what we lean into is putting out that front, but inside we are not quite right. So I think for me, adaptability, that piece of really understanding when I'm down, and then digging and really breaking that down into what happens to me and noticing it at every in different kind of using different systems to notice what's happening. And that's been because that is something that implies that repeats and repeats and repeats, because that my life experience is that resilience is moment to moment thing. It's not kind of like, oh, there is a massive thing and now I rise. And no, when you're struggling, when you have to go and see a doctor, when you have to show up for your kid, or think of another idea for a business, you kind of, that's a moment to moment, that's you have to kind of tap into that and manage yourself through that, so that you can you can navigate the rest.
Yeah. And what resonated with me was when you had said, first of all, what you teach and what you practice. So first of all, that it's a practice, that it's not, resilience isn't something you have or you don't. Oh, she's resilient or he's resilient.
Yes,
it is a practice. You build it. I think we'll get into later to talk about how we build it, before you need it. Almost you start to build that resilience capability, that capacity that definition talked about in advance of it. But I also like that you talked about noticing that we've had a setback or a fall, right? So obviously global pandemics, illnesses, marital issues or relationship problems, like these are, if there's a big break in coaching, we would call that like a break in transparency, right? Things in our world that are working are mostly transparent to us. We don't really notice them or pay too much attention to them until there's a break in that transparency, until something happens that brings it zoom right into sharp focus for us in that moment. And if it's big, we notice it. But I think what happens and what's happening to us daily is this small setbacks. Like I was sharing with you earlier today, like, the growing list of to-dos of things like that need sorted around the house for the kids, and just life things. And the bigger that list grows, the more I feel it. And so just even recognizing that growing list of to-dos is causing something to happen to me that's calling on my resilience to show up. And I think we don't always think about resilience in the everyday, just disappointments, hard conversations, things that don't go right, or things that we wish were going to happen and just couldn't happen. We think about it more in the bigger falls of life. But it's these small ones too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love your list, and just to, I love when we came when we started talking, the first thing you did is, instead of jumping into our conversation, what you did, you took a breath in, then you told me about the list you shared. So you did not, this is to me, this is what resilience looks like. You did not bring that and then charged our conversation with that energy, because then you're transferring what was happening there into what's taking place within a different arena. And then, you know, all sorts of things can go wrong. And when you transfer that, if you carry that on, and then we might have had a misunderstanding, and maybe coming into this live would have been a different energy, etc. So now your resilience capacity is just going. You felt that it was sort of punched a little bit, or like, you know, a withdrawal was done, and then it would have carried on like that until some other point. Maybe you would have had an argument with your hubby or whatever. So I think that is, so when I think about resilience practice, this adaptability, this noticing, this reacting to what we are noticing, getting up from these little falls, is what actually gives us a sense of agency. So, you know, you kind of go over that and you think, okay, so that, all right, so that list didn't go anywhere. You know that you could go back to it, but you have managed to swim into something else without taking it with you. And in a moment you dealt with it as much as you needed for this moment. So I think that is what I think it's important when we talk about resilience.
Yeah, you're right. And thank you for reflecting that back to me, because of course, when I'm in the moment of it, I may not be as observant of myself as somebody else can reflect back to you. I was aware that there was an energy in me, and that I wasn't in a state to have the conversation that we needed to have, because this other stuff was happening. And I think for me, my first go-to is breath. Right. So, you know, it is one of my resilience practices, but that breath is connected to much, much more. So talk more about the part of resilience that is the work we need to do before we quickly get up and just, you know, why is it that quick bounce back up persistence, just keep on going? What are we missing if we move too quickly?
I think how quickly or how slow we move, to me it's irrelevant. And it's irrelevant in a way that sometimes, as with your example, that the go through, the noticing, the dealing with it, filling the capacity, that happened pretty much in I don't know if it took 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that was very quick. And you then persisted. You showed up here. You're here. You're present. You still have that to-do list. But that kind of qualifying, sometimes for me that happens that quickly. So I just notice, it's enough to figure out where does it belong. So it doesn't belong in this space, it belongs to somewhere else. What needs to be done, you know, so that can be parked, and then, you know, we are persisting with life. We're carrying on. Sometimes it's much longer. I mean, I had a fall down moment. It took me a while to figure out why I was feeling the way I'm feeling. So for me, and I think, you say that the resilient practice in your breath, I think our quickest way to connect with what is going on for us is definitely our body. And the more I tune into that, the more I listen to it. So the other day I just carried it around until I figured it out. I felt into it, and I shared it. I think, you know, it's really nice to build language around this. So now when I say to my husband that I I am off, but I do not quite know. We do not have to have conversations like we used to have, which is like, what is going on, what is wrong, and sort of like, almost kind of going into that blame, or me trying to be something that I'm not in that moment, etc. So I think, having this understanding around what it takes to go through these practices, and having that shared language kind of gives you a space, without creating that disconnection that can often happen, especially in couples and in the family. I hope I answered the question.
Well, here's what I want to add to it. I had asked you about, what do we miss when we get up too quickly, or we just, soldier on. And I think what I want to add to it is our setbacks or our falls could be 30 seconds, or they can be, 3 years or more. It depends on what it is you're processing. But it's that word, processing.
Yes.
And you can do it very quickly, and it could, but it also could take some time. I think if I were to reflect on my lived experience of that 30-second resilience, acknowledging the emotion and the energy in my body, being present with it and clearing it through breath and a centering practice that I have, that came from not having just pushed through and persisted like I used to do. Like it came from a practice that I have been doing for quite a long time and for many years. But I can tell you, a decade or so ago, that was not my way. I was all persistence. I was all, pull yourself up and push yourself forward. And that was and I thought I was very resilient. I was very strong, I would have said. But what I was not was informed, connected to my emotions or myself, or wise at all about what was going on for me. I just knew I felt bad. I probably knew why I felt bad, but I also knew in my head, I'm like, oh, but if I just, if I just ignore it for, if I could just tolerate, I think that I would tolerate the presence of the emotions, but I wouldn't do anything with them. And I would I'm like, they'll go away, and it could take an overnight sleep. It could take a couple weeks, but eventually they'll be gone. But they'll be gone, but so will all of the opportunity for me to have learned anything about myself or that situation, or potentially another person if they were involved in that situation. So that 30-second, centering and resilience practice you saw me just go through, for me, is a result of having practiced when I have a setback, when I am caught by an emotion, that I'm pausing and I'm thinking, what's happened? How is it making me feel? What is this all about for me? And maybe there's nothing different to do, but I have gotten to the truth, at least, of like, okay, here's what's going on for you, Terry. In fact, it's not just the to-do list and all the things you have to do. It's the fact that, you're trying to be better this year about managing your time. You're trying to stay out of overwhelm. You're trying to create space in your life, and all of your efforts to create space. And I have this big long, right? So that's a much more, for me, honest acknowledgement of, I'm not just getting overwhelmed by a to-do list.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. And what I heard there, that idea of being strong, and I've done the same, and I notice I do that still, but now that pretending of being strong, of taking, like, coping. I hate coping. I really hate coping, because coping to me coping to me means that you are putting up with things that otherwise could be better. So before, like, I'm come from a family that, like, I could call my father a Spartan. Like, he's really hardworking. That, very little huge tolerance, and I would say I have a huge tolerance for coping, and that's one thing I had to unlearn, and I'm still unlearning.
Yes, same.
To do, because that what brings me very quickly, that moves me away from resilience and actually moves me into either overwhelm or burnout or resentment. I mean, it takes me places where I don't want to go. So I just want to, that's an interesting thing about resilience, that we think that by coping, and especially like if you think about our family units, sometimes, and that this happens in my marriage, like, sometimes I take things, or my husband takes things, and we are coping, but we disconnect in that conversation. We are not in touch with how is that coping affecting us, so that we can then have a conversation about it, because we are soldiering through, and it's so easy. And I think it's important that, as you said, like, I totally relate to all these practices. It takes a lot of time, not a lot of time to learn them. It's easy, but practicing them, the more you practice, the better you get. But still, I just want to say that it is a constant sort of mindfulness around that, and checking in, how much is this coping as a process, what we would say, like, how, are you processing and moving forward with it, or are you coping and kind of getting deeper into it, if that makes. How did you call that? I loved your language around that. Coping.
Right, because it always, when we
getting by.
We're getting by, right?
Yes, getting by.
Just, are we just getting by, or are we, actually growing forward?
Growing forward.
I have this image, right, of the persistence is just like a whole pile of, crap just kind of falls into your life, and you're just like, pick it up. And
yes.
Like,
I can do it.
Like, and you're strong. I'm just going to carry it.
Bullshit.
I can carry it, right? I can carry it. And really, you're carrying a whole bunch of stuff you don't even need, right? So that processing, for me, if we use this metaphor, is like going through, like, what the heck is in your arms? What is it you're carrying? And what is it that is not even yours? That's what stuff is not, it's not even your stuff to carry, right? You just leave that with those people back there who dropped it on your doorstep, and go forward with at least whatever your whatever knowledge of what just happened to you that you're going forward with, that you go forward with a very, like I had pointed out before, an honest understanding of what just happened, but maybe even just some learning about yourself, like, oh, I see what that does to me, or if you do this enough, you start noticing, I know from past experience what's happening to me in these moments, right? Like, I often get triggered if I feel like I've fallen off on an obligation, right? I committed to somebody to do something, I didn't get it done, or I didn't get it done on time, or if I feel like I accidentally said something that hurt somebody's feelings. I would never intentionally, but sometimes there's miscommunication. Like, oh, did I? And until I can clean it up, I'm like sitting with this. I realize it really grips me. I know what that's about. Like, that's not just about, like, oh, I want to be kind to my friends. That speaks very much to the, that little girl in me who learned to be a pleaser in order to win affection, and that's a much deeper thing to sort out. And I know when that feeling comes up, I'm like, okay, and this is another practice, just holding that and feeling that, or just like, okay, I can be with this. I know what this is. I know you're feeling unsafe too. I can talk to myself. I can work myself through that. So that's that, just like, not just getting by with this big load of, it's, processing that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I want you to speak to the words you put around it. You put around, so with respect to this elasticity, if we circle back to that.
Okay.
You're the one who pointed out to me, like, so as we're talking about the words we hate, right? Like, I don't like tolerate, you don't like coping, right? And you also said, I'm done with this bouncing back. I'm like, tell me about that, because that is the word we use actually in a lot of Brené Brown's work. We talk about it. We talk about resilience as bounce. We talk about her rising strong process as having bounce and bouncing back.
Yeah.
Tell me why you don't like it.
I think that every time we step into discomfort, we never come out of it the same people. And I think bouncing back, and I think maybe like, I kind of imagine we bounce back to how we were, especially when when you think about big changes in our lives, and difficulties. And then we often kind of go like, I want to be who I was, if I can only go back to how I was. And I think there's inherent, well, I don't think we ever go, we can never cross the same river twice. So we grow through these. I think that's what I don't like. I think we are missing this point of growth. So even in that description you said, like, when you connected that thing is not about that thing, but it is about your people pleaser, that is a moment of growth. It may not look like you've solved something, but that's the moment that you've connected with that, you soothe that, and every time you do that, you grow. So that's the thing. So I think I like we grow forward instead of bouncing back.
And that we don't go back. That every setback or disappointment that we experience changes us somehow.
100%.
It's the molecules in our body reorient. They have to reorient themselves into a new placement, if I think about it just at a molecular level. But it's same with our thoughts, with our emotions. These events of life stir us up, and we don't settle back into the exact same understanding. Not that we're a different person, but to not acknowledge that event has created a shift in us, sometimes just small and subtle. And it doesn't need a big debrief or, a week-long, retreat to sort it out. But some of them are bigger, right? Some of the bigger ones really do. It's not about just moving on to the next job or figuring out a way to, sort the childcare situation out for, the next few months, or how to make ends meet to pay the bills. Like those moments of some fear or some insecurity, or where something very, very important to us is experiencing a risk. I think to not acknowledge that has altered you and your understanding of the world around you. You could go forward a different person, but you may not like that person that you go forward as.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean by that? I think I mean, it's the first time I've said it like that. I think I mean the me who went forward before, who knew that maybe events had shifted her and changed her, she went forward, changed, but a little hardened, a little less, maybe less trusting, a little more armored, a little bit more protected. Like, next time I won't let that happen, and this is what I'll do to that.
Okay.
Rather than going forward, like understanding what had happened and not necessarily being at peace with it, but being at awareness with it. And so that I can be on the lookout for, if I'm armoring myself, again on this. I don't want to go through the world armored. I want to go open and loving and connecting. And armor doesn't allow me to do that. So I think that's, for me, the importance of these resilience practices.
Yes, that's excellent point. So you choose, some things invite us to armor, and I think it's okay. It's okay. But then there is a point, I think, in this adaptability and processing. We also invite that inquiry that says, is this armor that I want to keep? Sometimes we, totally, we have to armor and get on with things. But you want to put some time frame around that, and some definitely awareness and mindfulness, so that you can decide, at what point, so that you are not mindlessly just now carrying that, and it's not in line with who you want to be.
No.
Wow, we have I really enjoy this.
I know. I wanted to just maybe, if we could end on just hearing you describe a little bit more of a lived experience around resilience and your practice. I'm still stuck on this word practice. That's where I'm at with this. Your practice, and do you have a recent example of what that practice looks like, and what part of that practice is happening before the event, during the event, after the event? Like when is it happening?
Yeah, okay, I'll do it very quickly. And if anyone wants to, I see names. I really don't know how to write to people or wave to people and talk, so apologies for that. The picture would be wonky and everything. So if you do want to ask any questions or share anything, please do. And I'll share my example. So what I was thinking about resilience, where it's showing up for me personally, is this going through a change. So I am going through a change of shifting the way I eat, but it's not a diet. It's more of a lifestyle. I have things to health-wise to take care of. So it's a shift. So it's not a kind of little adjustment. It's I was here and now I'm here. And what's happening to me is that, obviously, like when we are changing something, the desire is that it's going to happen quickly. It's going to, we are just going to, you shift the tracks for a train and you just go on and you carry on that route, but it doesn't happen that way. So my most, not one but many fall down moments on this journey have been around the times where I did not make the right choice. And when that happens to me, so I'll just tell you the kind of the resilience in action. So let's say I had the other weekend, I just kind of let go of everything that I was trying to implement, and I ate stuff that I shouldn't have eaten. And my immediate immediate trigger for me is that I start being quite nasty to myself. So and that's the first thing that I need to manage. If I think about the choice, so this is, so you have things that is happening on a kind of on the practical level, but in terms of resilience, that is the first thing I have to sort out. Otherwise, my resilience is just my fall is going to be deeper, and that's what I used to do. So when that voice comes in, and that voice can be like, you see, you failed again, or you've been trying to do this for so long and you're still not, you see, you've done it again. You are investing so much money into this, and here you get, here you are with a ice cream in your hand. So that is the kind of the voice and the story. And I know the story that unfolds about me, how well how capable I am in actually making this change. So in terms of resilience, that's the first thing, that I have to talk to that voice. I have to go through. I mean, I kind of look at this ways, because I become an observer of that person who is doing these things, or he's talking to me about, like, how horrible I am. So that has been a massive shift in my resilience practice, that then I can distance myself. It can be still painful, but I am no longer looking at that story and looking at that voice and kind of going, oh my God, you're absolutely right. I'm rubbish. This is never going to work. I'm choosing to kind of say, yes, yes, I messed up. I can see that. Let's just, it's okay. I know that those things are true, but I do not, that story just not serving me. And it's enough for me to say that, that's just not serving me.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to make different choices. So even in that evening when I, messed up, then I was able to, take some sweet peas with my pizza and stuff like that. Like, things that I wouldn't have done before. So that is, it allows me not to go as deep. And then the proactive, like, once I disconnect that story, that voice, then I'm looking for my body. I'm looking for, I can see, a different time I pay attention. So it could be like there's certain powerlessness that goes with that, like, disappointment, like, real disappointment. So I have to take care of that. I have to, I mean, I have a trampoline here. I could jump on that, or I can just invite myself, or have a bath. I mean, I think that evening, I just said, there is a bath, because when you start paying attention, what you then start honing in is your needs, and you start to listen to those needs, and you start to acknowledge that actually you can, instead of going for a default story, I managed to go into what was really going on. So recognizing that, I'm stressed and it's been hard. And so then it's my conversation with self, or that practice becomes, all right, so what do you need? And, that evening it was a bubble bath. Today, like, when I had something like, it was a trampoline. So it just shifts. And I think, to me, that's unfolding of that, a fall down moment. And also not catastrophizing, not kind of making it, I fell down and therefore, like, the other thing that I do now that I haven't done before is actually I have somebody who's helping me with this. So I text her and I say, I have messed up. And I'm very careful how I describe it to her. So instead of kind of saying, I'm really rubbish and, this is that, I even choose not to use that language, but to just state the facts. This is what's happened. I feel crap. And then I say what I've done, and she's able to then support. And in sharing that, and you don't know that from our stuff that we teach, is that sharing that is extremely important part of the resilience practice. So those are the kind of little, I mean, kind of a whistle stop tour, or whatever it's called.
Whistle stop tour of your resilience practice. Exactly. I think what I'm really appreciating about it, and thank you, Sanela, for sharing with us your experience so vulnerably. Just appreciating how much self-compassion there is in that practice.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to sum it up for our community and for those people who have worked with us, know that we think self-awareness is king. Like, without it, you just wouldn't get to any of that. That awareness of what is that voice in your head, what happens after that voice comes, what's the usual route of that particular train, and how do I interrupt it, and what are the practices that I have. So I think what I'm taking away from tonight is that resilience is not a thing. It's not something you have. Resilience is something you do. It is a practice, and it is a process. Like, the act of feeling your way physically, emotionally, through a fall down moment is resilience. And you don't see billboards or Nike ads touting resilience as, somebody jumping, on a trampoline after they've just eaten ice cream. You wouldn't, and maybe the trampoline part because it's Nike, but I think we don't think of resilience as that quiet moment where you're sitting with yourself and breathing through the emotion and trying to connect your self-awareness to that emotion. You see pictures of resilience that look very, very different than that are much more grit and that persistence that we talked about, rather than this sitting with acknowledging and adapting. And actually that is building much longer term resilience.
I agree. Yeah. I think that is, it's similar like self-confidence, isn't it? Like, confidence, you can achieve stuff in life and still feel not confident at all. Like you see that in kids, like, you can praise them till cows come home, and they can still feel not confident. So that is like, that to me, that is the getting up and just rushing through and pushing through of resilience, and instead of connecting to and processing and learning and moving forward, enriched resilience practice that we are talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I feel like a little bit slightly bad that we've spoke for so long, but I absolutely enjoyed it, and I hope that people who joined us enjoyed it. And next Tuesday, we are running we are running an interactive live session on resilience, and talking about the myths of resilience. You'll have to help me here. So the myths, what it looks like.
Yeah, the dispelling the myths, but also, how to build that. We're going to get into how to build that practice and what are the components of building a resilience practice, and what are the kind of the foundational skills to start focusing on, right? Because some people may be listening to this and maybe, I don't know where everybody is on their own self-awareness journey, but if you're listening and you're thinking, I'm not there, I don't have this practice for resilience, where do I even start? So I think, next Tuesday evening during our connection session, we're kind of going to do that first step. Like, what are the first steps you need to understand and appreciate that start getting you on your way to building a practice that's right for you.
Yeah. So it's on
15th
to register. 15th.
Yeah, it's the 15th Feb, 8:30 CET, 7:30 UK time. And register on our site, groundedparents.group. And it's just £12.
Yeah,
bargain.
What a bargain.
It's the cheapest you're going to get resilience for, let me tell you that.
I love that. Resilience for £12.
Bargain basement resilience. No, it'll bring great value. It'll bring great value.
100%,
Okay.
100%.
So we look forward to seeing some of you there. And Sunela, thank you as always for being so genuine and for being so you during these conversations. I love them. I love you.
Same. Thank you. Same.
Take care.
For you. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.